employees in our district, 80% of our staff are student facing. So they're either educators in the classroom or they're in student support roles such as para-educators. This year alone, we had to onboard 88 new employees, right? And that's across all bargaining units, that's across all employee groups. And what we found is that our hardest to fill roles are our specialized roles. So those are our BCBAs, those are our speech and language pathologists, our OTs, occupational therapists, and we try not to use acronyms too much. Those, they can find opportunities in many different places, and they're very difficult to fill roles in our districts. And that's something that's experienced across the nation. That's not unique to Amherst. That's across all districts, most districts. And so one of the biggest pressures on our student experience and what we're seeing in our system is attendance and is also licensure. So those are the two focal points for today that I really wanted us to focus on. We can go in many different directions, but those are the ones that drive a lot of the conversations that we have. So when we're looking at staff attendance, 80% of our attendance or absences are from our student-facing positions. Now, I know they're our largest group of employees, but they also compose our largest rate of absenteeism. Now, attendance issues can come up for a variety of reasons, but as I mentioned, we want to focus on what impact does that have to our student experience in the classrooms. That creates variability day to day, right? If students don't have consistency, and the students that feel that the most are our most high needs students, right? If their one-to-one isn't there on a daily basis, or if they're unable to be there consistently, those are required services that go unmet, right? And then we're scrambling. How do we fill these positions during the day? How are we finding substitute coverage? How are we making sure that our kids' needs are being met? And so that's a lived reality. It also puts strain on colleagues in the building, right? So you're being pulled from your classroom or from your prep time to be able to fill in for someone else. And that's the time you need to plan and prepare and make sure that your kids are successful for the day. So those are definitely strains that we're seeing, that we're working towards to address so that our kids can have consistent educators in their classroom day to day so that they can receive what it is that they need. The other point here is licensure. I work closely with the College of Ed at UMass. There aren't droves of people going into the fields of education. It's just not a reality, right? It's not something that we see. It's not something we're experiencing. So when we're trying to fill positions, we're finding that some of the candidates that apply for positions aren't licensed for the roles that they're going into. So we have to apply for waivers. A way that we're trying to mitigate this is to create our own licensure pathways in the district. We had one called Amherst Futures that successfully graduated 8 paraeducators to become licensed educators in our district. We work on really trying to provide hand-to-hand support for our educators going through the licensure process. There are certain barriers in place that DESE themselves are trying to address. Right now, they've come up with a system to waive the communication literacy MTEL for folks who are eligible for that, but it is real. And it is something that we face, and we always want to make sure that we have the highest qualified individuals in front of our students. There's a creed that I live by, and it's if I would not be okay with my student being in a classroom, then it's not okay for anyone else's student. And that's just the reality of it. And so here we just see the cascade, right? If our systems are fragmented in these ways, if we can't put consistent expectations forward for our staff to be here, to be present, if we're unable to kind of bridge these gaps in terms of licensure and making sure that folks are qualified to come in and to teach our kids, ultimately the ones who feel it are the students in our classrooms. And that's what we're those are the questions we're trying to answer. Those are the things we're trying to mitigate, and the conversation that we're having today. Another piece that we're looking at in terms, and I'll speak specifically to my department, is making sure that, sorry Tanya, that's your clicker. I apologize. That when we're talking about systems and having cohesive systems, we're actually looking to internally at our platform. So what are our platforms saying? If our platforms aren't talking to each other, by that I mean our evaluation systems, our personnel record systems, our professional learning systems, then it's really hard to keep track as to how are our teachers doing in the classroom, and are they receiving the supports that they need? Are they receiving the professional development that they need so that they can feel successful? Are they going in and consistently filling out their self-assessment every year and saying, these are areas I'm really good at, and these are areas of growth that I would like to get better in? And how are we connecting that to their professional development? So as we internally look at our platforms, we're saying, okay, how can we connect the dots here, and how can administrators see this in a fluid way? And it's not perfect. We've been working on it for the last 3 years, and there's definitely bumps and kinks along the way, but the purpose is, how are we tying this together, right? If a teacher is aligning their goals and aligning their self-assessment to the standards, and we're doing this work right now with our evaluation committee, how are we then, as the administrator, saying, okay, let's get you the support that we need? How do we connect that to a professional learning platform that says, here's the PD we can offer, here's the time, here's the coaching, the mentorship that we can offer you. And it's trying to bring that all across along the way so that ultimately the one who benefits from it the most is the student, are our students. So this is what I was just referring to here, is just how do we bring up our internal talent, but how is our internal infrastructure also supporting that, right? Because we can get folks licensed through our system, we're trying to provide as much support as possible, but then how are our internal systems making sure that that the life of our employee in our district is one that brings them towards success. And those are my slides, right? That's the foundation for today before we jump into more data and start talking about how that feeds and trickles into the classroom. Okay, so now Dr. Z said I'm going to take questions. Dr. Z, take no questions. I'll take questions. Yes.
Can I just ask people to introduce themselves when they're
sure,
speaking?
please.
Thank
I
you.
have to hand off the mic.
Behind everybody. So.
Hi, I'm Sharon Ruth. I'm from ARC CPAC. I was wondering if you had any information on employees that have quit and sort of what kinds of support they're wanting. Because I know in special education, we've had staff members quit, and as you said, they're hard to refill. So what can we do more? I know you talked a bit about professional development, helping with retention, but I just wondered if you could speak about that a little bit.
Sure. We do conduct exit surveys. I was just in an exit survey for a special education position last week. And you know, what they shared is they love the district. Thank you, Allison. They love working in the district, right? We have really incredible educators. They feel the support. A lot of times it is for personal reasons. They're moving away. Other times it can be a difference in a clash of culture, right? In terms of, by culture, I just mean, I don't mean like ethnic, I mean the culture here in Amherst can be different from folks who are coming from other places. And so how are we doing with our mentorship program, our first year mentors, and how are we pairing them up to make sure they're feeling the support and can come in and integrate into our culture and can feel comfortable and welcomed here. So I've heard a variety of different things, but those are mostly the points that have come forward. And some of them are because of licensure, right? Massachusetts is a very rigorous state to get your educator licensure, and especially if it's a specialized role, there are a list of competencies and things, and it can be very difficult for folks to attain licensure here. Yes, John.
John Tricky, fellow. You addressed the licensure and that kind of stuff, but what about the absenteeism?
I can talk to that a little bit. So we're currently working with APEA on a very robust response to attendance and absenteeism that admittedly will ruffle feathers and it'll be difficult, but it's really to try to just establish mostly consistency. Our administrators are really good about going in and asking the question, what's going on, what's happening, why are the attendance rates like this? But we're now working on putting a system that's transparent to everyone around what the district's expectations are, and then us as administrators consistently applying that system. So it is a work in progress. As any of you might know, we have to work collaboratively in that process, but it is something that is being addressed. Margaret?
I just wanted to say, for people who may not know, could you tell them what
APEA. They are the Amherst Pelham Educators Association. Thank you, Margaret. I said I was going to use acronyms, and look at me. And they are the body, the union body over our teachers and their educators. Here.
parent and representing against the school equity advisory committee. I just had a question about how our absenteeism perhaps compares to our region, our area. Is that just typical, or is ours larger than?
I ask this question a lot, like in our listserv group, around attendance and what are you doing to handle attendance or address attendance in your districts? And it is something that a lot of districts are dealing with. I haven't polled, I don't have a spreadsheet to show percentages, but anecdotally, other HR directors and superintendents share that it is something that they're trying to work with, and they're trying to work collaboratively with their unions. I think after COVID, definitely we saw a spike in attendance, and we don't want to encourage anyone to come to work when they're not feeling well, but I think there was a shift, a culture shift too. And so it's trying to get back to what we were doing before then, and how do we do that and still support our educators. I saw Sarah Marshall and Tim, did you have your hand up? Anna, thank you.
Sarah Marshall, Amherst and Regional School Committees. Can you describe how the districts, or maybe it's a building-based, develop lists of substitutes? How do you, because I imagine that's part of the problem. If you had a qualified substitute, you wouldn't need to pull other educators away from their classes to help during an absence. I imagine that that's also challenging, but can you talk about how substitutes are found, and if districts collaborate, there's some big list of, that you could pull from? I'd like to learn more about that.
Sure. Different teacher role and for para role, perhaps also.
Yeah. I'll try to be succinct because I'll be mindful of the time. I think we have one more question. Subs are very difficult to find, right? They're per diem, it's very transient. It's people can choose whether they want to come in or not that day to sub. We're working also with the union to try to create a full-time permanent sub position within the district, right? There's multiple different things that we're trying to do to address this issue. We invite retired teachers to come back and be subs. They're the best kind of substitute you can have in a school district. But yes, it is very, very difficult to find substitutes, and that's why we end up pulling teachers from the classroom to cover many times. And we don't have the answer, right? We don't have the perfect way of how to resolve that. I'm going to go to Anna. I'm going to go to Anna so she has an opportunity. And I think that's the last question I can take.
So I just wanted to say absences, especially after COVID, have been a huge problem both with students and with teachers. In Shutesbury, they had a food allergy, and they've implemented a whole bunch of very restrictive guidance around hygiene. So people are washing their hands a lot more. They're limiting food consumption only to the cafeteria, and it has the side benefit of reducing illness. And so I was just gonna say, what kinds of hygiene structures have you tried to use in this school, in this district just washing hands more frequently actually really reduces germ spread. And so maybe there are some hygiene procedures to
I can't say we have one, but I also, Sonia, our nurse manager, isn't here to ask either. And that is absolutely a point of feedback that I will bring back. So thank you, Anna. I'm sorry if there were other questions, but I want to keep us on track with time. Is that okay, Dr. Z?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we do have some coffee and fruits and water available. We're gonna take we did a lot. It's been like over an hour. Everyone might be needing a promotion break. We're gonna take a quick 5-minute break, have your side conversations. We're gonna come back and continue with absenteeism for students next. So let's take a quick 5-minute break.
Are we going to get these slides?